Welcome everybody. How are you doing today? I hope that everybody is doing really well. And today I wanted to speak a little bit about our upcoming 3-week intensive Surrender, Nervous System and Trust, how to follow our desire for truth to awakening. The 3-week intensive is going to start on the 8th of May, and we also have a very special invitation for students that have not attended any of my programs before. If you are one of them, you are invited to join us for free for the first week of this program. So surrender, nervous system, and trust. They are very, very important, very crucial, essential elements necessary for awakening. There really is no trust without surrender. We have to be able to learn to follow what arises from within. When I speak about trust, I'm really speaking about trusting in truth, trusting in the teaching, trusting in the words of the teacher. And really, most of all, over time, we are learning to really listen, to hear the teacher within, that movement that arises within, that is guiding us. And so without trust, we cannot surrender into that. We cannot learn to follow that, which is a big part of surrender. Also, there is no awakening without trust. I spoke about trust so many times already, and of course we will be speaking more about this because there are so many levels to trust. And so often, I share this with you about my own experience, and so often in your experience also, you think you trust. We might think that we trust. If somebody asked you, do you trust this? You will say, of course. And yet there still may be levels in which we don't fully trust. And that full moment of trust is really necessary, because when we trust fully, completely, that's when we can ultimately let go. Let go and let whatever needs to happen, whatever needs to arise, whatever that realization is of our true nature, for it to show up naturally. We need that full and complete trust. And we also, in between of those, we speak about surrender, we speak about trust, we speak about awakening. There is the capacity of the nervous system to be here. And so often when I speak about it, I call it the missing link. So what is the missing link? What does that refer to, the missing link? It is the missing link between our desire for truth. Because so often I see people really truly following their desire for truth, and they show up in programs and they show up in intensives and they want to really follow that. And there is simply, which they don't understand a lot of the time, lack of capacity in the nervous system to be here, to experience presence, to know this experientially, not just to understand, not just mentally, right? So the missing link is the missing link between our desire for truth and our actual ability to be here. Because it sounds so simple, right? And you have heard it so many times before, just be here. However, you also know that it is not always easy. And that especially, at first, I see that with students that come to me at first, and then, over time also, but especially at first. If there is a lot of charge because of trauma past, or because of challenging events in the past, or because of habits that have developed over time where the nervous system does not regulate, there really is no capacity to experience being here, to experience presence, to experience this moment, right? To really be here in this moment. And that can lead to discouragement and disappointment, and people just give up because they don't understand why. why, you know, I'm feeling drawn to this, and I'm sitting and I'm doing everything, right? And I'm doing everything right, but something is not working. Why is it not working, right? And so often that's this hidden element, you know, not many people speak about this, the capacity of the nervous system to be here. You know, it's like driving a car. Once we understand, once we learn the ways to work with it, then we can really become present when the tendencies of the past arise, when the unmet, unfinished tendencies that have been here for so long and that have the power to take our attention away from presence, when they arise, because when they arise, they really affect our experience. They show up as thoughts, they affect our physiology, they show up as feeling, sensation, emotion. You know, so often there's so much going on experientially, right? And so it's kind of difficult to know what to do in those moments. And so when past arises like that, when tendencies of the past arise like that, when they show up in your physiology, in your thoughts, you know, there are actually three things we can do. One is, and that's being said without any judgment, one is we follow that, right? We reenact it, which actually makes the tendencies really stronger. You know, the other thing is we are trying to suppress what arises, right? Everybody has tried that. Even some so-called spiritual practices have encouraged us to suppress. Of course, that doesn't work. What you try to suppress, it's only going to come up some other time even stronger, right? It makes it stronger as well. And yet there's this other way, you know, the way of presence, the way of inquiry, the way of being here, when we can just simply meet what arises, when we can become available to be present to meet what arises. And in that moment of meeting, which is so powerful, that is the end of suffering. So I'm going to be speaking about this more, you know, because again, how to, right? Learning how to, you know, it's on the one hand so simple, on the other we want to understand this better. And you know, even for students that have been doing this for a long time, as I'm speaking with you in programs, as I'm speaking with you in private sessions, you know, I notice that there are these moments where we really get, our nervous system still get habitually affected by what arises or by the circumstances in your life. And so there is something there that we can learn, there's something there that we can all practice even more to understand, you know, how to help this in a moment. And so I will be speaking about this, and of course I will be speaking about so much more in this upcoming program, and I want to invite you to join me. And also, if you are enjoying these videos, please share, please like, please subscribe. You know, I'm learning and finding out that this YouTube algorithm needs this participation from you. It needs the likes, it needs the subscriptions, it needs the, it needs the sharing, because that's how we can make sure that more people are going to see this. And that's what we want. We want more people to benefit from this. You know, this information is just so needed in today's world. So I'm looking forward to our time together. Here more on through videos or in this upcoming program starting on May 8th.